It is on to week 2. Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. APW Sports signing in for another Chicago Bears preview. We're heading into week 2, coming off of a win off the Tennessee Titans, and it's going to be on Primetime Sunday Night Football as we travel on the road to take on the also 1-0 Houston Texans in a battle between Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud. We all know that is going to be the talk of the weekly things leading up to the game, but it's time to get my preview predictions and my pick for who I think is going to win this game. There's a few things to talk about, so let me not drag this on any longer. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Now we're going to first talk about this Bears offense that is going up against the Texans defense, who had a little bit of a struggle last week against the Indianapolis Colts. The thing about the Bears offense coming into this ball game, you got 3 major problems. Number 1, fullback Kari Blasingame is questionable at the time of me recording this video. So is Odunze with the MCL sprain, and so is Keenan with his injury. So those 3 things can play a major role in the way the Bears run his offense. And then on top of that, we have an offensive line, especially interior, with Shelton, with Bates, who's questionable as well, Tevin Jenkins, who I want to just say the whole offensive line of the Chicago Bears really struggled last week against the Tennessee Titans. And you're going up against the Houston Texans team, who has Will Anderson Jr., who's coming off a Defensive Rookie of the Year. Danielle Hunter, we know he can really get after the quarterback. And then you have Mario Edwards Jr., who us Bears fans should know could be a very productive player on the interior of that defensive line. The offensive line of the Chicago Bears, I think, is going to, number 1, have to pass off some of those blitzes. They have to pass off some of those blocks and sustain those blocks, because there's no way a center should just be getting trucked by a linebacker like Shelton did last week. Darnell Wright was big whiff on a couple of blocks, and Nate Davis, Lord knows what he's going to do, be hurt, and who knows. This offensive line is going to have to pick up against a defensive front that can cause problems. They had 2 sacks last week against the Indianapolis Colts, and I think the Indianapolis Colts, to be honest, they have a better offensive line than the Bears at this point of time. So I think the Bears are going to really have to pick things up and get this running game going. There's no way that Chicago Bears team should be running for 84 yards in total last week against the Tennessee Titans. This running game has to get going, because the way we've seen Shane Waldron set up is the running game gets going, and then you can predicate so much of your rollout, so much of your bootleg, so much of your play action based off having a productive running game. And Caleb Williams, we all had expectations of them to be high. I was one that told you guys to calm down, and we kind of seen it a little bit last week. I think he's going to have to come out better. He's going to have to come out and trust himself, because we've seen times where he held on to the ball too long, and especially against this Texans front, and especially with the way your offensive line played last week, I think Shane Waldron is going to have to dial up a few things to get the ball out quickly. And let's not sleep on the secondary with the Texans that has Derek Stingley Jr., Jalen Petre, Jimmy Ward, who can be game-changing factors. Now, I think the weakest part of this Tennessee defense is the linebacker core. Al Shahir, Jake Henson, and 2020, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I think that is the weakest part of this Texans defense. And I think Kmet is definitely going to have to be a bigger factor in the ball game this week because of the matchups that he can create. And I think he's going to have an advantage if schemed right against these linebackers from the Houston Texans. Now, we know DeMeco Ryans runs a very solid defense, a very solid 4-3 defense where they can create havoc. And I think if Kmet is one that they are utilized him more, Gerald Everett as well, if they utilize the tight ends more, who I don't think are going to be able to truly cover Kmet and Everett, I think that could be a game changer along with a running game. I've always said the tight end is a young quarterback's best friend. So I personally believe that Kmet and Gerald Everett are definitely going to have to be more involved scheme-wise in this ball game, especially whether it's chip, especially whether those short routes that expose the middle of the defense. We're going to have to see more from the tight end position. We're going to have to see more from his running game with Swift and Herbert, and we're going to have to see how these injuries fare up. Are Allen and Odunze going to be ready to go come Sunday night against this Texans defense? Today's video is brought to you by Cellular C4. This is a product that I personally used before I even decided to partner with them, and the first thing I got introduced to was the energy drinks by C4. This right here is a fruit punch flavor. They have many other flavors. They have popsicle flavors that just dropped. They have Skittles, Starburst, all the type of flavors that you want. To help you get started with your day, you can wake up in the morning before you start your day and drink you one of those. And also before you get that workout in, when it's workout day, you can take you some pre-workout to help you get the boost in your workout. All the products, 0 sugar, low calories. This is a great product to take you in your workouts and your journey on fitness to the next level. And I am happy to partner with a product that I was already using in my own personal life. And I will leave my code in the description below to save you guys 20% on your first purchase of C4 of their workouts. They even have muscle recovery to help boost after workouts. They have so many supplements and things to help you on your fitness journey, and you can get yours today in the description below. Click the link and use my code APW Sports to help you save 20%. And again, the links are in the description below, and use the code APW Sports to save you 20% on your purchase. Now, it is time to get back into the video. Now we're going to talk about this Bears vaulted defense against the Houston Texans offense that, let's just say, they can create problems. Whether it's CJ Stroud, Diz, Collins, Dale in the passing game, which has some success against the Colts defense. Whether we're talking about a guy like a Joe Mixon who had a really good day running the football last week against the Colts with 159 rushing yards. This Texans offense is a really balanced offense that can beat you throwing the ball, and they can beat you running the ball. Now, we're going to have to see more stout play up front, because in that first half, the Titans really ran the football very productively on this Bears defense. Now, Billings and Dexter, I think, are going to have to be a better presence up front. When we're talking about this Texans passing game, I think the Bears pass rush is going to be key, because the Texans are coming off of a game against the Indianapolis Colts where they let up 4 sacks to CJ Stroud. They did run the football well, but they just did not protect CJ Stroud well, even though you have Tyus Howard, even though you have Shaq Mason, who's a very good at right guard, Laramie Tunsil, who's up there for the top left tackles in football, Montez Sweat, DeMarcus Walker, Darrell Taylor, who's coming off of a tremendous game last week, are going to have to put pressure on CJ Stroud. Now, we know the Bears secondary is going to have a lot. Stephon Diggs is a lot to deal with. Tank Dell, Nico Collins, that is going to be a lot to deal with when you're talking about Jaylon, when you're talking about Briscoe, when you're talking about Gordon, Stevenson. That is still a lot to deal with. Now, we did face a 3-headed wide receiver monster last week with Ridley, with Boyd, and with Hopkins, even though Hopkins was a little bit injured. Especially in that second half, I think the Bears did a very good job of that, and they're going to have to continue this play, because Stephon Diggs, you can argue, is a top 5, top 10 wide receiver. Tank Dell and Nico Collins are young receivers, but they had tremendous years last year. And then you're talking about a running game with Joe Mixon, who had a very good day against the Colts defense that is stout up front in its own right. So CJ Stroud can pick you apart in this offense. These corners in the secondary, I think, are going to have to make things a little bit confusing for him, make things a little bit trickier for him. Be aggressive, I think, getting after him, because there were signs last week that if you are aggressive, that you can get after the quarterback. They did that against the Titans last week. The Texans didn't hold up a protection against the Colts. So you're going to have to get pressure on CJ Stroud, kind of get him off of his game, kind of get him off of his spots, because if he's in his spots and he's locating his receivers, it could be a very long day. Despite the Bears having I think one of the better secondaries that we have in football, with Byard as well. You're going to have to create some pressure, get things tough for CJ Stroud, and be more stout against the run game in both halves, not just the first half. So the key for this defense, you still have to create some turnovers, I think. Get some big plays, get some big time stops. This is going to be one of those games where you're tested against I think the Texans probably have a top 5 offense if you're talking about on paper and some of the things that you can execute with this Texans offense with CJ Stroud. And you guys know I'm all a little bit biased to CJ Stroud from Ohio State. You're going to have to create some pressure on him. You're going to have to make things difficult. You're going to have to make him make some mistakes, force him to some mistakes, and just be aggressive as a defensive unit as they were in that second half last week against the Titans. Make those adjustments going into the game instead of waiting to the second half. With all that said, my pick for this ball game is going to be honest, I'm going to pick against the Bears. I'm going to pick some Texans, and this is why. The main reason I think the Texans are going to win this game is I just do not trust the Chicago Bears offensive line to hold up stout against Will Anderson, against Danielle Hunter, against Mario Edwards Jr., who can create problems up front for this Bears offensive line. We've seen the interior of the Bears offensive line struggle, and until I see improvement, it's going to be hard for me to really trust this offensive line to protect Caleb Williams. Even though I do expect Caleb Williams to come out and play much better football, be a little bit more accurate, get the tight ends involved even more, I just personally believe that this Bears offensive line could struggle. Now, we're talking about the Bears defensively. I think that's where they're going to get their big plays from, just like last week, whether it's sacks, whether it's strip sacks, forced fumbles, interceptions, turnovers, all that type of stuff. I just think the difference in this ball game will be the Texans' ability to execute better on offense than I personally believe the Bears' ability to execute on offense, because the Texans, they're not like the Bears. They're not starting off with everything brand new, even though Stephon Diggs is a new acquisition. He's one of those guys that you can put in and you can get some time to get real adjusted to him. And on top of that, we have injuries at that wide receiver spot with Odunze and Keenan Allen. And if neither one or both or either of those guys, or neither one of them are good to go, I think it's going to create a big time problem and create matchup problems, especially with DJ Moore being the number one. It's going to go be back to last season where DJ Moore was the only number one wide receiver, the only one getting open besides Kmet. Even though Shane Waldron, I do believe in his scheme, it's just when you have injuries to your top dogs, you have an offensive line that still hasn't been consistent. Defensively, the Bears can have success. I just think the execution of the Texans could be just that enough to win the game. And I'm going to pick the Texans with a score of 21-17. It's a close game, but I think the Texans just make enough plays with their offense to pull this game away. And I hate to say it, but the Bears will start off 1-1. But those are my thoughts. Leave you guys' pick and predictions in the comments down below. I would love what you guys think. And I will catch you guys later. APW Sports, and out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great next one today, and I'll catch you guys next one. Peace.